The rain was pounding against the window of our Seattle high-rise when Mark walked in without his access card dangling from his neck. That thing was like an extension of him, clipped on every morning, forgotten at barbecues, even joked about by our son as Dad's chained to the grind. But that evening, it was gone. He set his briefcase down with a soft thud, pecked my cheek, and headed straight for the kitchen to fiddle with the coffee machine we'd been meaning to replace. The machine sputtered uselessly. It had been broken for days. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and just needed something to do with his hands. New intern starts tomorrow, he muttered, staring at the empty mug. Boss wants me to train her up. His voice was even, but there was a hitch in it, like a record skipping just once. Mark had been the linchpin at Apex Dynamics for 12 years, handling their biggest aerospace client, Lockheed Analogs. Government contracts thick with red tape and security clearances. He'd navigated audits, sealed deals in boardrooms that smelled like old money and fresh ink, and built trust that couldn't be bought with PowerPoint slides.
Now,
suddenly, he was babysitting Emily, the boss's daughter, fresh from a liberal arts degree with a resume highlighting social media strategy and mindful leadership workshops. I didn't press him that night. We ate takeout Thai, watched him scroll through a documentary on aviation history, his eyes glazing over the screen. But I felt it, the subtle shift, like the air pressure dropping before a storm. This wasn't guidance, it was erasure, wrapped in corporate niceties. By midweek, the emails trickled to a stop. Mark used to be CC'd on every thread,
his input sought like gospel. Now,
it was read-only access or radio silence. I caught him one morning, gripping his phone so tight his fingers blanched, reading a chain where Emily had been looped in instead. Her responses peppered with emojis and vague optimism. He didn't vent. Mark wasn't the type to explode. He absorbed, analyzed,
archived.
That evening, he dug out an old accordion file from the attic, labeled Client Protocols, 2014 onward. Dust motes danced in the lamplight as he pored over it, marking sections with yellow tabs. His brow furrowed in concentration. At one point, he lingered on a specific page, a non-disclosure agreement addendum from their flagship client, AeroSecure. He slipped it into a slim envelope and tucked it into his laptop bag without a word. That's when I knew he wasn't just processing the slight, he was arming himself. The office buzzed with forced enthusiasm when Emily arrived. She sauntered in with a designer tote, perfect highlights, and an aura of unearned confidence. Her first act? Claiming Mark's usual spot in the strategy huddle, asking for a quick cheat sheet on those regulatory thingies. Mark handed her the binder he'd compiled over years, thick with annotations and case studies. She skimmed it, wrinkled her nose, and quipped, "Do we really stick to all this? Seems kinda rigid." Mark met her gaze steadily.
Yes.
It's the law.
His boss,
Victor, watched from afar, beaming like he'd just unveiled a prodigy. That week unfolded like a slow-motion car wreck. Victor paraded Emily into client Zooms she wasn't cleared for, where she mangled terminology, calling export controls trade vibes, and suggested flexible timelines to affirm dealing in classified tech. Mark corrected her gently in private, but the damage seeped in. Nights at home, he'd pace the living room, not in anger, but in quiet dissection. "They're handing her a loaded gun," he said once, staring out at the Puget Sound lights, and calling it empowerment. By Friday, the axe fell softly. Victor pulled Mark aside in the break room, coffee steaming between them like a smokescreen. "We're shifting directions," he said, voice laced with false warmth. "Take next week off, recharge. Emily's got the energy we need right now." No formal notice. No severance talk. Just a velvet-gloved push toward the exit. Mark nodded. thanked him politely and left early.
At home.
He opened his laptop, attached that scanned NDA page, and forwarded it to his personal account. Subject: Continuity Clause Reminder. He poured a scotch, sat on the deck despite the drizzle, and watched the ferries cut through the water. In that stillness, he was already plotting the counterstrike they never saw coming. The NDA wasn't just legalese, it was a safeguard AeroSecure had insisted on years ago, tying the contract's validity to Mark's personal involvement. His clearance, his oversight, irreplaceable without mutual agreement. Victor had overlooked it, blinded by paternal pride. Mark didn't rage, he recalibrated. As the weekend blurred into Monday, he reviewed every saved email, every memo, building a timeline of his contributions versus the impending chaos. Emily's first solo call with AeroSecure was a disaster waiting to bloom. She logged in early, adjusted her ring light, and launched into a pitch about synergistic pivots. The client's compliance officer, a no-nonsense veteran named Rita, cut her off mid-sentence. "Where's Mark? This requires cleared personnel." Emily stammered, promised updates, but the line went dead silent before disconnecting. By afternoon, AeroSecure's legal team pinged Victor directly. Confirmation of account handler reassignment? Victor brushed it off with assurances, but the seeds of doubt were sown. Mark's phone buzzed that evening, not from the office, but from Rita. "Heard you're on leave," she said flatly. "Is this permanent?" he confirmed, voice steady. She paused. Then, per the addendum, "We're invoking termination rights." He didn't gloat, just thanked her for the heads up. Hanging up, he opened a new document, Business Formation Outline. While Victor prepped Emily for more wins, Mark was laying the foundation for his own empire. The termination notice from AeroSecure landed in Apex's inbox like a precision strike, clean, irrevocable, citing the exact clause Mark had flagged. $280 million in annual revenue.
Proof.
Up in smoke because Victor thought family ties trumped expertise. The office erupted in hushed frenzy, legal scrambling, execs in emergency huddles. Victor's face paling as he read the email aloud in his glass-walled lair. Emily, oblivious at first, kept posting motivational quotes on the internal Slack, but the replies dried up. Mark, meanwhile, was at our kitchen table, sketching LLC structures on a napkin. "They'll feel this," he said quietly, not with satisfaction, but resignation. He'd already contacted a lawyer friend, Sarah, who specialized in corporate spin-offs. Over coffee the next day, she reviewed the NDA. "This is gold," she murmured. "You can port the contract to a new entity if AeroSecure consents." And they did, Rita called back, offering to migrate everything if Mark went independent. No bidding war, no negotiations, just trust earned over a decade. By Wednesday, Victor was in damage control, looping Emily into frantic rewrites of protocols she barely grasped. She forwarded a botched compliance summary to AeroSecure, trimming critical sections for clarity, signing off with her name bolded. Rita's response was curt, unacceptable. Rescind and resubmit under authorized personnel. Emily's confidence cracked. I heard through a mutual contact she spent the afternoon in the restroom, stifling tears. Mark filed the papers for Summit Strategies that afternoon. Simple name, no frills. He didn't celebrate, just wired the formation fees and waited for approval. Victor tried a Hail Mary, scheduling a reconciliation call. He prepped Emily with talking points. Emphasize innovation, agility. She parroted them, but Rita dismantled her in minutes. Innovation doesn't override federal regs. Haze. The call ended abruptly, Victor's blotchy neck visible even from afar.
At home.
Mark reviewed candidate resumes, former colleagues who'd reached out discreetly. Tired of Victor's favoritism, he hired two on the spot, a sharp analyst and a compliance whiz, both undervalued at Apex. "This isn't about payback," he told me over dinner. "It's about building something solid." But I saw the glint in his eye, the quiet fire of someone reclaiming their worth. The board at Apex convened Thursday. Whispers of nepotism audit floating through the halls. Victor defended his choices in a closed session, citing Emily's fresh perspective. But the numbers didn't lie. Client churn loomed. Stock whispers dipped. Emily cornered a coworker for advice, admitting she felt overwhelmed. "Dad said it'd be straightforward," she confessed, voice wavering. The response was pitying silence. Mark's first official meeting with AeroSecure under Summit was virtual. Seamless. Rita welcomed him like an old ally. "Glad you're steering this solo. No more amateur hour." He outlined continuity plans, every detail crisp. By end of day, the contract was signed, same scope, same budget, now funneled through his firm.
He closed his laptop,
Poured a glass of wine, and stared at the rain-streaked window. "They pulled the thread," he murmured. "Now the seam splits." Friday brought Apex's internal reckoning. An all-hands email announced strategic realignments, but the subtext screamed panic. Emily was reassigned to marketing fluff, social campaigns, away from high-stakes deals. She packed her desk quietly, avoiding eyes. Victor's office door stayed shut, his usual bravado muted. Mark, in contrast, leased a modest office space downtown, glass and steel, overlooking the Sound. He hung a single plaque, the framed NDA addendum, a reminder of foundations. Calls poured in from other clients, wary of Apex's instability. He fielded them methodically, expanding Summit's roster. That night, as we walked the dog along the waterfront, he squeezed my hand. "Feels like starting over," he said. But it wasn't erasure, it was evolution. The fallout at Apex accelerated like a chain reaction. Two more clients, mid-tier defense suppliers, queried their account handlers, echoing AeroSecure's concerns. Confirming continuity of cleared personnel. One email read, "Carbon copied to legal." Victor fielded the calls himself, voice strained, promising stability. But the trust erosion was palpable. Contracts teetered on renewal clauses similar to the NDA bombshell. Emily's demotion hit her hard. She showed up in casual attire, tasked with curating the company newsletter. Her attempts at peppy content fell flat. Colleagues skimmed, uninterested. One afternoon, she approached a veteran team member for tips on agile compliance. The reply was blunt. "It's not agile, it's airtight." She nodded, but her eyes glistened with defeat. Mark's Summit office buzzed with quiet efficiency. His new hires integrated seamlessly, poring over migrated files. AeroSecure sent a welcome package, updated protocols, a branded mug inscribed "Reliability First." He placed it on his desk. A talisman. Inquiries from Apex alumni trickled in, resumes attached, notes praising his steady hand. He interviewed selectively, prioritizing grit over gloss. Victor's board review loomed. He prepped defenses, highlighting Emily's potential contributions. But leaks surfaced, emails showing he'd bypassed HR protocols for her fast track. The COO grilled him privately. "This isn't a family business." Victor deflected, but sweat beaded on his forehead.
at home.
Mark reviewed expansion plans, hiring a bookkeeper, scouting subcontractors. "They thought I was replaceable," he said softly, flipping pages. "But relationships aren't plug-and-play." I nodded, sensing the deeper wound. Years of loyalty repaid with dismissal. Monday's Apex strategy meeting devolved into finger-pointing. Victor blamed oversights on outdated systems. Others eyed him warily. Emily sat silent, doodling on her notepad.
Post-meeting.
She confided to a friend, "I thought it'd be empowering." The irony hung heavy. Summit's first independent audit passed flawlessly. AeroSecure's auditors commended the transition. Rita emailed personally, "Smooth as ever. Glad we stuck with you." Mark forwarded it to his team. A subtle morale boost. Victor's suspension dropped Tuesday via memo, pending review of executive decisions. No fanfare, just revocation of access. He arrived to a locked badge. Stood bewildered in the lobby. Emily resigned by email that afternoon. Polite. Evasive. Pursuing personal growth. Apex's PR spun it as commitment to excellence, but clients fled. 2 more contracts terminated, citing instability. The stock dipped 8%. Whispers of layoffs circulated. Mark didn't monitor the chaos he built. Summit secured a secondary client from AeroSecure referrals, $50 million in play. He hired more staff, including a young but proven engineer. That evening, he cooked stir-fry, humming softly. "Balance restored," he said when I asked about Apex. But his eyes held a shadow of what loyalty costs when betrayed. Apex's board overhaul began in earnest. New policies mandated blind hiring for key roles. NDA reforms naming positions over individuals. Too late, the damage tallied hundreds of millions lost. Layoffs hit. Support staff first, then mid-level managers. The office atmosphere turned toxic. Blame shifting like sand. Former colleagues reached out to Mark en masse. He vetted them carefully, onboarding those aligned with Summit's ethos. Competence. Integrity. His team grew to 8. Handling expanded workloads with precision. AeroSecure praised the agility. Ironic, given Emily's failed buzzwords. Victor's exit was finalized quietly. Severance with NDA gag. No golden parachute. He networked desperately on LinkedIn. Posts touting lessons in leadership. Responses were sparse. His network knew the story. Emily pivoted to content creation, a blog on corporate wellness. Her posts skirted the fiasco, focusing on growth mindsets. But comments hinted at schadenfreude. Nepotism's a tough teacher. Mark's days filled with client calls, strategy sessions. He mentored his hires personally, sharing the wisdom Apex undervalued. One evening, reviewing a new contract, he paused. This clause echoes the old one. It protected continuity, a nod to his past. Apex's CEO addressed the remnants in a town hall. "We're rebuilding stronger." But morale plummeted. Resignation spiked. A whistleblower article in a trade journal exposed the nepotism. Anonymized but damning. Summit, conversely,
Thrived.
Mark secured another major deal, a satellite firm seeking reliable oversight. Revenue projections soared past Apex's losses. He leased additional space. Hung motivational art, abstract waves symbolizing resilience. At dinner, I asked if he regretted not confronting Victor directly. "No," he replied. "Actions speak. Words fade." His calm masked the catharsis of turning dismissal into dominion. The article's fallout sealed Apex's slide, investor pullouts, regulatory scrutiny. Victor faded into obscurity. Consulting gigs sparse. Mark hosted Summit's first team retreat, a casual hike in the Cascades. Laughter echoed, bonds formed. Back home, he framed a Summit contract page beside the NDA. "From ashes," he said softly. Months later, Apex teetered on acquisition rumors, a shell of its former self. Clients scattered. The board's reforms were band-aids on a hemorrhage. Trust, once shattered, proved irreparable. Victor resurfaced occasionally. LinkedIn updates sparse. Tone humbled but defensive. Emily's blog gained niche traction, but she avoided corporate tales, sticking to self-help fluff. Whispers suggested family rifts, Thanksgiving dinners strained. Summit, by contrast, ascended. Mark's firm landed on industry watch lists, rising stars in aerospace compliance. He spoke at a conference, not on revenge, but resilience. Build on trust, not titles. Applause followed, offers poured in. One afternoon, a former Apex exec emailed, collaboration inquiry. Mark's reply was polite, firm. We prioritize proven partnerships. No bridges burned, just rerouted.
At home,
Life normalized. Family dinners, weekend sales. But the experience lingered, a scar turned strength. Mark mentored our son on careers. Value yourself, others will follow. Apex was acquired quietly by a conglomerate, rebranded. Victor's era erased. Mark read the news impassively.
close the tab.
Years on, Summit dominated its niche. Mark at the helm, quiet as ever. The NDA plaque remained, a silent sentinel. In rare reflective moments, he'd say, what if loyalty is a weapon, not the weakness? Leaving the question hanging, a moral echo in the corporate void. Was justice served? Or just balance tipped? The answer, like Mark's path, unfolded in silence.